It is the next day and we are back at home in my workshop. We're going to break this 4-to-1 down, but let's cover what we're going to need. We might need an impact gun. We're going to need a step gauge tool. We're going to need the 4-to-1 gasket and a new gear. I'm going to start by taking these 2 bolts off. They should be 3/4. These ones are indeed. So let me grab a 3/4 socket. I don't have a whole lot of standard sockets here in this shop because we're mostly GS pin setters here running metric. But we should be able to run this off pretty easy with the Ugga Dugga here. Loud noise warning. I've got it on low setting too. So we're going to go ahead and break crank arm off first. We're going to need to take the bolt out of the end of this. See if I can stand it up right there. What size are you? This size? No. I don't know. I don't know. Let's try this really long one. And that way we'll lose all of our torque. Ding, there we go. We have a winner. Well, it's either going to work or it's not. Not on that setting. Number 3. Whoa. Yeah, there it is. Oh, fun with power tools. All right. Flat blade screwdriver, something on the larger side. This might work. We're going to run that in there and tap it down. And we should be able to slide the crank right off the end here. Where's my hammer? All the way over here. Give a couple of good tap, tap, taps. All right, that one's out. I'm going to take these 4 bolts out. Pardon me. We're going to remove them. Okay. If you don't have an impact gun, that's okay. Whoa. Again, started on low setting. It's not enough. The length of this driver is limiting its amount of torque. Yeah, well, I mean, it seemed like a good idea on paper, huh? It's okay. Let me go back in. We'll do it the old school way. Oh, or not. Need more leverage. Let's turn this thing back on its side. Wow. Hit it with a hammer. Ooh, I missed. I'm also going the wrong direction here. They're going to be super tight now. I haven't had enough coffee. This is not working. Plan B. Plan C, Plan D, I don't know. All of the plans are in play here. 1, 2. All right. Let's go with something a little bit shorter, so we won't lose a lot of torque here. There we go. Boy, that one was... These are in there. Palm heel strike. That one was satisfying. Get out some of your aggression too, huh? All right. We will be removing all of these screws and the entire ring. Threads are stiff on this one. Are you there yet? Are we there yet? Yeah. All right, let's keep all those right there together. We may or may not have to use the threaded holes in here to press the oil seal and bearing hub off. There's two holes that are threaded on this flange, and they're used for this exact purpose. Let me see if we can get the key out of there. We might not. Very precarious position here. That's coming out. There we go. Always a good tip. Side cutter, leverage, can defeat nearly any keyway that way. I feel like I gotta bear hug this thing. Yeah. It had a little water intrusion here, huh? It's got some rust. Don't know if that's gonna make it substantially more difficult or just a tiny bit more difficult. There's only one way to know. I want to try and keep it fairly even. I don't want to run one side down substantially more than the other. So we're just going to walk back and forth. So the oil seal and the whole 4-to-1 shaft are moving, but we're not breaking free between the bearing and the shaft yet. And we may not. These bolts are running out of thread. Oh boy, it's getting very tight. Well, let's lay it on its side. We'll get some more, try and get some more leverage. Oh, hey, shims are coming out, so good time to remove those and set those aside. Yeah. Incredibly tight now. Well, yeah, that's locked in there, man. Holy shamoly. I wonder if we can try and dislodge it. We'll put a piece of spare lane paneling chunk on the concrete down below, and we'll give it a couple of tappy taps and see if it comes out. Let's see if this is gonna work. It might not. We really don't know. Hoping for the best. Done. There's a little More difficult than normal, but we're done. We are back up at the workbench. We're done hunching over for that particular part of the process. Oh no, we're not. I got a little more tapping to do here, huh? I have to get that out the rest of the way. One moment, hold on. Ding. Our screws here prevented us from tapping this thing down any further. We shouldn't have much more to go. Let's bring that board back up here on the floor, or on the workbench, off of the floor. Oh, well, that was easy. Now it's out. Yeah. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, a spacer came out with. Oh no. Well, it looks like we're gonna be waiting for parts here. This spacer's pretty chewed out, man. Basically, if you can see that groove, you can feel any groove with your thumbnail, it's bad. And that one is bigger than thumbnail size. Big sigh. Oh well. Well, we might be asking ourselves, could you flip it 180 degrees and make it work? And put the fresh side forward against the oil seal? Probably. I don't know. I've never tried it. I've never seen one that bad before either. So, one thing at a time. Boy, oh boy. Can we get the flange out? I think so. Maybe. Yeah, pry bar. Gently. Gently. Easier said than done, huh? We're going to make a mess here. Yeah, that's not gonna work. I have another idea. Let's use the shaft and aim right for the inner race of the bearing. See if we can tap it out that way. Again, not working so good. Abandon this idea. Abandon this idea. Do I have longer bolts? I don't know, because all of my hardware is metric. That's okay. There is always another way. I don't know what it is yet. I just know that there's always another way. What if we use wrenches as spacers? Yeah, could work. That'll give us some more room. Quick thinking. How to Overcome Problems by Mike Buckley. Rule number 1, do not panic. It's usually a pretty good rule number 1. I need to get some taller wrenches here. Should be almost done. Should be almost out of there. Maybe? Well, we've reached the end of travel here. The rubber O-ring on the outside of this bearing. Loud noise warning. Well, we're making progress. What am I doing? Brain rebooted. Let's grab something taller, shall we? That's too tall. Well, now, let's see. We have some other wrenches here. Are these thicker? Not really. Well, let me put it on pause real quick. We'll see if we can find something to use as a spacer. All right. I had to put you guys on pause. We had some technical difficulty questions on a flex machine with a faulty start button on the handle. I had to try to assist someone in figuring out how to start their lane machine without a working button on the handle. They got it figured out. And all is right in the world once again. We're using two 10mm Allen wrenches as our spacer to finish pressing this out. I think we're there. Almost. More. Okay. The rubber O-ring in here hasn't quite gotten above the flange. It's always something. We will, let's stack. So we had some 10mm in there. Let's go with some 8mm on top of that. Why? Because it'll work. Like I said, we don't have a whole lot more to go. But ingenuity, creativity, and work with what we have at hand. This is totally going to work. I hope. No, it's going to work. It's going to work. All right, there we go. Ay, caramba. Ding. It's out. Okay, let's set that aside. Next step. We need to get rid of all of our gouging in here, right? It's getting a little gross. We need to be able to shim this thing properly too. With these high spots from the press bolts, you may not be able to shim it 100% accurate. Plus there's some other dings and stuff in here. We need to get this down nice and flat. This file is a little small. Yeah. All the files are a little small. This one is about 3/4 of an inch longer. That should be enough to keep me from slipping off. We're just gonna work this around. Round and around. Yeah, you can see there's a high spot there and there. We'll come back to that. Just kind of looking at general topography now. And we'll mill it. We'll mill it down flush. Slow and steady wins the race, right? So that's all looking pretty good. Now let's focus a little bit more on these high spots. This is aluminum, so we don't need to go too hard, too heavy. I'm also left-handed, so I'm going to switch sides here. I think I do a little bit better job. Left-hand dominant. This is looking pretty good. We got a couple gouges in there from previous bolt presses, but not bad. Not bad, not bad at all. Alright, so the tail looks good here. I'm going to wipe off the top surface here. We are going to clean this off really good too, but for now, just kind of doing an initial triage and diagnosis here. I'm going to wipe the gasket flange surface as clean as we can make that. We're going to run a file on this side too. I can see there's some distortions here, and some of those distortions can cause a bad sealing surface for the gasket, and we want to give this thing every chance possible that it will not leak when either I or perhaps somebody in the future starts to bolt this thing down. So we're just going to gently work around the flange. Try and keep everything as square as possible. Yeah, a little bit of a ridge here. Just go around it once, kind of get, like I said before, the topography. Find your high spots, find your low spots. That pin's pressed in a little deep, so you may have to work that down a little bit. Not to worry. It's looking pretty good. We'll come back to it in a minute. It's a painstaking process, but this will ensure better longevity, fewer leaks in the future. Go at it from the other side. Yeah, again, another high spot right there. Doesn't take a lot to clear it out. This is aluminum. Overall, not too bad. Yeah, a little bit again right there. So let's focus on that. I wonder if somebody dropped this accidentally or on purpose. I make jokes about doing the bombs away, but please don't. We can do better. We must do better. Let's focus on this steel pin. It's going to take probably the most time to work this down. Hey, that looks pretty good. I think we're done there. Lot of flange here. This does take Slightly longer, but I think we're nearly done. Yeah, maybe a little more around here, but I think I see just a little bit of high spot right there, and some around that bolt hole. Not much, just a tiny bit. That was the impact gun. Oops. No, they're pretty tough. I think we're good there. Let's go pick that up before I accidentally trip over it. Okay. Yeah, this is good. This is good. You can tell the scoring, the marks you leave with your file, when they're all nice and even, they're you've got a good flat flush surface. And this is looking really good. I wish that I had some brake cleaner, but I don't. I do have some lacquer thinner, and that'll probably be the best thing to clean this up. So let me, we were cutting a bunch of Dynamat on this thing, and some of that sticky rubber is transferring over. Yeah, but still, lacquer thinner. We'll clean that up. So let's pause it here. I'm going to go grab the jug of lacquer thinner, some rags. We're going to wipe everything down, and we will come back in when it's nice and shiny. I lied. We're going to do a little bit on camera. Oh, yeah, lacquer thinner makes you instantly aware of every little scratch you have. Oh, yeah, it burns a lot. It might be time to put some gloves on, huh? Eek. Yes. Quite uncomfortable. But you can see just how good of a job that it does at cutting the grease and the oil and the gasket sealer and the dirt. And look at that. Just melted off. Almost as good as brake clean. Not as fun as brake clean. But we'll finish this off camera. I'm not gonna waste your time. Door housing has all been cleaned up. It is nice and shiny. Ooh, look at that. Yeah, that side too. But I digress. The next step involves our hydraulic press. So we're gonna go over to the press and press these gears off the shaft. Went ahead and didn't bring you guys along for the ride to get this jigged up. It wasn't really very exciting, but we're here now. So we're hopefully, oh boy, this is getting tight. Oh no, oh no. Too tight, abort. Oh boy. Wow. Yeah, I thought this was gonna come off easier, but it's not. I'm gonna pause it right here and go grab some safety glasses, because this is making me nervous. I remember years and years and years ago, I was pressing a, was it not a detector, but a one-to-one shaft assembly together, and the cam literally exploded. One of the extended cycle cams exploded into a billion teeny tiny pieces. It was very scary. Oh my goodness, this is also very scary. Holy shit. Yeah, this is a no-go. We're exceeding this 12-ton Ram's Crap. Well, I don't think we have enough room for Max here. Let me take a peek. Yeah, maybe. Well, let's try a different plan. We're gonna give voiceover a shot on this because my audio cut out for this. But I've got the press reconfigured and I've got only the worm gear set to press out. It was too much force having the arbor plates under the bearings. It just wasn't gonna work. It exceeded the capability of the press. So this is going to work. Boing, there goes the shaft right off the bottom. So we've got everything cleaned up, smoothed out, ready to go. We have everything that we need. New gear. The that spur gear, it's not tapered. The new ones are tapered, but all of their gearboxes are older style, so that non-tapered style should work. I'm also not going to mark the timing tooth on there. It's got a dimple, but I never do these at 0 degrees anyways. So we've got everything set up here, ready to press back together. We're going to do one piece at a time. We're going to start with the gear, the worm gear, and then we'll put the spur gear on. Yeah, this is going good. Nice and easy. Press on one thing at a time. If you do both of them at the same time, it may exceed the pressure rating. And if you notice the press is wobbling around, it's on a 4-wheel, like a furniture dolly. So it's not super stable. But it's kind of always been like that. And it's got wheels. So if we need to roll it somewhere, yeah, we can do that too. There we go. That one's done. The next one's going to be the spur gear. So we'll go ahead and set up for that. Going to make sure that we've got the keyway lined up before you start pressing. Otherwise, you're going to have a big problem. Looks like I'm struggling a little bit here, but I got it. It was a little stubborn. Didn't want to go to its home. A little bit of a do-over, but there it goes. It's an interesting concept, trying to do a voiceover. This is something totally new to me. I'm used to just rambling on and on in the moment. So we're going to struggle through this. We'll get there. Thank you for your patience. But I thought that this process was, I guess, important enough to not just throw away because the audio wasn't there. Thank goodness for the Harbor Freight 12-ton hydraulic press. We don't have to use it very often with GS machines, but I'm glad we have it. Almost home. Almost down. All the way down. There we go. Got that all done. Looks good. We're going to head back to the workshop. Look at how shiny that is. Pretty good. Came out real good. So this is the point where we start reassembling. Flip everything back over, worm shaft or worm gear side down. Try and get it started in the housing. This one was a little bit tougher than normal. But it's going in there nonetheless. The bearing and oil seal, flange and housing. It's important to clock those press holes at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. If you do like a 6 and 12, if that oil seal starts to fail, that can be a point where gearbox oil leaks out. So I try and do 3 and 6, or pardon me, 3 and 9. And I forgot the spacer that goes on the shaft under the oil seal. That one's pretty chewed out. But what we're going to do, we're going to flip it around 180 degrees and put the non-grooved worn side is going to be away from the oil seal. So we'll have a fresh side facing. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's kind of, we don't have any extra parts for A2 machines. We're GS pinsetters, so all we can do is the best we can do here. And I put an Allen wrench in here just to kind of line the holes up a little bit while I start trying to press these or reassemble. We've got everything ready to go. The one thing that I don't have is longer hardware to start this. So I'm going to start with a dead blow and see if I can tap it down far enough to where the original flathead Allen screws will start to engage the threads in the housing. This might work, it might not. We really don't know yet. Yeah, not going to make it. We need to go down a little bit more. What are we going to do? Hit it harder with a hammer. At this point, I started realizing that this was not working the way I had wanted it to. I'm actually knocking the bearing housing in. It's going in, but the bearing is staying behind. So I need to come up with another plan. It's just good idea. Just it's not working out though. What to do? We're going to grab a bearing punch tool. I had to go out to my car to get it. It lives in my my mobile tool bag. But a couple of good whacks and that assembly starting to come back together. At this point, I'm kind of realizing that the dead blow may not be enough. It might be, but we might upgrade to a bigger hammer here. Yeah, there, baby sledge. And a couple of good smashes. And we are good to go here. We're not going to run it all the way down yet. because we still need to do the final shim. But we're just going to start these screws. Just going to baby tighten them just a little bit. We need to leave enough of a gap that we can get our shims back in. So we're just going to work around a little bit at a time. Almost there. This will help too if you get the pieces slightly misaligned. Just running them down a little bit, that'll help twist that flange and square it back up to the housing just a little bit better. So we're going to take our shims, we're going to clean them up, make sure they're not damaged or deformed. They don't have anything weird embedded in them that's going to be a high spot or cause any issues. And so far these are looking good. They're a little discolored. They're probably, pushing 50 years old. But for 50-year-old plastic, they're in pretty good shape. So in order to install the shims, we're going to have to take the bolts back out. So we're just going to unthread them. And then we're going to slip some shims in there. Okay. You can see how we're going to line them up. Okay, so we bring in our shims back in. It's important to line them up properly. I like to put the split or the seam where the press holes line up. So in order to get the shims in there, we have to take the screws back out because they're going to thread through the shims. Okay, there's one. And the second one. And go ahead and get our screws back in and start pressing this back together. Make sure everything's lined up. Okay, this is looking good. Okay, we'll begin the process of running this thing down. We're going to thread the screws in. We're going to tighten the flange evenly across all screws. Just a little bit at a time. I want to keep even pressure on everything and make sure it goes in as square as possible. You don't want to crank down too tight on one side and put extra stress or deform the aluminum or anything like that. So a little bit at a time, tiny turns. It got a little difficult, so lay it on its side and use a little extra leverage. Kind of get my shoulder into it a little bit more. Okay. This is working. Slowly but surely. Yeah, it's starting to get tight here. It's not being super cooperative. But we're making progress. It's getting there. Little tiny turns at a time. Almost done. Well, this is not working. I don't have enough swing room. There we go. Is this gonna work? I think this is gonna work. It's working. There we go. Just go back around one more time. Make sure everything's nice and tight. Yep. Yep, we're good. We may not do a final torque down on this yet because we might need to adjust the shim amount. You know, this is a used gasket. I don't have a new one. But if you look at the notch on that step gauge, it's kind of a go or no go gauge. That milled end and the unmilled surface difference is like 5/1000ths of an inch. And the idea is that you lay that down across the flange of the housing with the gasket, and you should go under the nose and stop against the unmilled surface. But we need to bring the crank arm back on and tighten that down in order to get a good gauge on that shim adjustment. I'm going to get the keyway back in. I'm searching for a flat blade screwdriver and a rubber mallet. I'm going to tap the keyway back in. There's our flat blade. Let's go ahead and tap that back in. Open that up again so that it can slide right on. Just like that. Almost. Got it. So we're going to tighten this screw up, and we're going to end up seating the crank arm on, and we may end up pulling the 4-to-1 shaft and seat it a little bit better inside of the assembly. So if we go ahead and get the impact gun, and we'll run this screw down and seat everything, and then we'll recheck our shim adjustment. You don't have to worry about loud noise warning with a voiceover. But it is kind of weird that there's no ambient Pinsetter noise or anything. It's awfully quiet in here right now, huh? So that's run down. Everything's tight. It's going to pull everything into place. And we're going to go ahead and bring our gasket back in and our step gauge tool, and we'll recheck. I kind of got my hand blocking. You guys can't see what's going on here. But it's not quite right. So we're going to measure, I'm going to use feeler gauges and measure just how far out of spec it is. And if I remember correctly, it's about 10 to 12 thousandths. So what we want to do, we've got, it's too far out. The worm gear is too far away from the flange. So we measured out 12 thousandths that we still need to shim up. And I don't have any more shims. And this gasket also is used, right? So a new one might be a little bit thicker. We don't know. I don't have a new gasket with me. They have one in their center. But I think what I'm going to do is come up with a plan to shim this just a little bit more. And I have some stuff in my toolbox, and I'll be right back. Here we go. Do you guys remember old school pad machines? They use shims like this to shim the wicks out, increase pressure against the transfer system. I don't know why I have these still, but I'm glad that I do. This black one is 12 thousandths. I measured it with calipers. So we're going to cut it little pieces and stuff those two little pieces in there and then retighten the screws. So that'll shift the entire shaft assembly inside of that housing by 12 thousandths. 12 thousandths of an inch is not very thick. But it's the difference of this thing running right or not. It's really important to have that worm gear centered in relation to the worm shaft, the clutch worm shaft of the gearbox. So this is working. Totally working. We're going to do our last final tighten here. That all looks good. We'll bring the crank arm back on again. Put it on, take it off. Put it on and take it off. But it's all worth it to make sure that this is done properly. We're going to run that down nice and tight. We're done. It's seated. Socket stuck. It's not an impact socket. We'll bring our gasket back in and we'll recheck. Gotta flip it the right way though. And yeah, I know my hand's in the way. You can't see what's going on. Again, apologies. Bad camera, man. But the milled step is going under the gear and the unmilled step isn't. So we're set up. We're pretty good. This is spec. I made a notch decoder out of one of those sections because I saw it on the lockpicking lawyer. He's like, I got a notch decoder. I want to make one of those too. Okay. Last tighten. Final check. Bear hug tight. I wouldn't recommend using the impact on this particular set of screws. But you still want those pretty darn tight. So what I don't have is a new O-ring, and I don't have the spacer. We're going to reuse that from the assembly that this will be replacing. So our last step is going to be putting these bolts back in. Since the crank arm is going to point that direction when the machine is at 0, we're going to set these bolts top down. We'll put the nuts at the bottom side. It's just kind of a peeve of mine. Oh, there's our lock washers. So lock washer, nut, sticky threads. They're a little dirty. I didn't clean the bolts. Cleaned everything else, but I missed those. So we don't need to go crazy tight on this. We probably don't need number 3 on the impact gun. I've got it at number 2. So this is looking good. I think we are, I think we're done. Nice and shiny. Looking pretty good. So if you made it this far, thank you. This is my first attempt at voiceover, and I hope this video helps you.